Good evening, I'm Olive Burrows and welcome to the county edition of Presspass. We're coming to you live from the Nation Studios with Roslyn Obala, Jacqueline Mwenesi, Mutinda Mwanzia and Anderson Ojwang. In our newsroom, we have our political affairs reporter Kennedy Mureithi, and in Mombasa, we have star correspondent Charles Mgenyi. On phone from Nakuru and Machakos, we also have Teddy Nzao of Mbaitu FM and the Secretary General of the Kenya Association of Correspondents, Joyce Kimani. On WhatsApp, I'm just kidding, I won't get into that, but take it from me, we've got the country covered. First things first, what am I going on about? Well, tonight we focus our lenses on media coverage of county issues. What type of stories are amplified on the national stage? Does the national media only pick up stories from the counties when gruesome deaths are involved or when governors make their way to Nairobi to respond to audit queries in the Senate? And what of the relationship between the press in the counties and the county governments? Are they in the governor's pockets? The lesser children of a mighty media organization that leave them flailing in the wind, overworking and underpaying them. Is there a let me show you how to do it, how it's done actually attitude when big stories break out of the counties and teams from the capital, Nairobi, sweep in? Piqued your interest yet? All that and more right after this. Tonight, we zero in on press coverage of county issues.
Support media bana hawa wanafanya kazi yao vilivyo.
The public is just thrown into issues that unfold and all of a sudden we miss follow-ups.
On to a question of the week. Are you satisfied with the media coverage of your county issues? All right, so first I want us to take a closer look at those vox pops. We went out onto the streets in various counties and we asked this question. I translated it into Kiswahili for those who didn't get the English version. Just one second, let me find it for you. But basically, just what are you satisfied with the media coverage of issues in your counties? Before I get into what has come out of Twitter already, it's not very positive. But before I get into that, let's listen in to their views.
I'm happy to say that the media has really done a good job in our county in covering many issues. For example, they talk about the governor, the way he has done his work in the county, and also some of the problems which we are facing, and even many parts of the county, they are reached.
In regard to giving information regarding to our county, especially in financial mismanagement in the county, or when it is not when it is well utilized. So I appreciate the work of the media.
The only detailed stories we will always have is either a scandal, a scam, or something that relates to the teachers, because those are the guys who will buy the newspaper.
We have other issues going on in the county apart from what county governments are doing. And one example is insecurity in the counties. Like this particular county of Elgeyo Marakwet, we are grappling with insecurity in Kerio Valley, where killings are going on almost on a daily basis. And I feel this has not gotten the proper attention of the media as it ought to be.
The public is just thrown into issues that unfold and all of a sudden we miss follow-ups. Like in Elgeyo Marakwet, what we heard in the media of the Phantom Haror and Kimwarer projects. The media has been following, but to some extent they are missing caps. So we would want the media actually to give us these missing caps. It should go beyond informing.
Media hawajaweza kutimiza ama kuexplore ile news yenye iko kwa mashinani, haswa tukiongelea katika kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, maneno ya amani kule Kerio. Tunaona ya kwamba tu wakati wowote, labda tu ule wakati wa siasa, haswa wanasiasa wanapofika huko ndo tunaona hawa watu wa magazeti, hawa watu wa televisheni wanakuja kucover news, lakini ni habari za kila siku haswa zenye zinatendeka tunaona ya kwamba hawajaweza kufika mahala pale.
Vile vitu mingi imejulikana kwa media, na media hawafichi kitu yoyote. Sio ati vile nimeongea ati na support media, hapana. Hawa wanafanya kazi yao vilivyo. Hata ingestahili serikali wasaidia wa security, kwa sababu mahali venye media inaingia sio watu wote wanaweza ingia mpaka chini.
Kuhusu Mombasa County wajafanya lolote, kwa sababu unajua hii mambo ya Mombasa County inatakikana wananchi waone kitu ambayo inafanyika hapo Mombasa County. For example, sahii unaona vile mvua inanyesha na kuna hizi drainage huwa haifanyi kazi. Kwa sababu mvua kama imenyesha kidogo kuna maji nyingi sana. Hiyo Mombasa County, hiyo kitu inatakikana watu wa media watoe kwa media ili Mombasa County waone kabla wajafanya kazi. Hakuna kitu ambayo wamefanya lolote.
Kwa kusema ukweli, media imefanya kazi, lakini mbali na kufanya kazi bado kuna kazi zaidi natakikana media ifanye, kwa sababu tumeona ufisadi katika maeneo mbali katika kila kaunti, na ikiwa hizi ufisadi zinasemwa, hatujaona kama media imedig deep zaidi.
Kwangu mimi sijaridhishwa sana kutokana na vyombo vya habari, sababu vyombo vya habari ndio vinasababisha kupata kujua mambo ambayo hatujajua. Kwa sasa ningetoa wito waweze kutembea kila mahali kwenye vitongoji, yani kwa ndani, kutufichulia mambo. Kuna mambo yanayofanyika ndani kwa ndani huko ndani, lakini hatupati habari. Lakini sasa ni vizuri sana wafanye bidii kutembea kila mahali, manake naona hao ndio tufichulia mambo.
Those are the thoughts of residents of Mombasa, Nakuru and Machakos. Tuliwauliza kama kuhusu basically namna vyombo vya habari huangazia maeneo yao. I had to reclaim my thunder. But on Twitter, it's not looking too good either. Joroge Muraya says, I feel betrayed by the media. All this looting and misuse of public funds is happening under their watch. They're compromised, especially the local county correspondents, given tenders and hush money. They investigate to extort, not to expose. Jamuthi says mainstream media houses, and he names Nation, Citizen and Standard, have really let the country down by sensationalizing politics and treating us to watered down, poorly researched news reports. It's also sad that the country is now heavily weighed down by negativity. Welvin March says absolutely nothing except when Ruto gives visits, or I guess visits the counties. But social media has taken over to cover. We're also well informed because we lack journalists with quality content. Okay, there's a bit of a contradiction there. Nyamogo Gogni says not at all. There is miscommunication or some level of disconnection because the media lacks adequate county ambassadors or representation that can ensure prompt quality coverage at the county. As a result, media relies on social media, which to some extent is hashtag fake news. Well, the hashtag next to that is hashtag Presspass. We are not fake news. And you can tweet us as well. Join in the conversation. It's at PresspassKE. Now, please allow me to properly introduce my guests in studio and out in the counties. We are joined by Mutinda Mwanzia, who not only serves as the press secretary to Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua, but is also chair of the County Communication Directors Caucus. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Mwanzia, he told me on second mention I should use that. Happy to have you present. And also present, first of all, are you happy to be here?
Extremely.
Extremely happy.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you.
Very happy.
Next to him is Roselyn Obala, a senior political reporter with the Standard Group. Her byline gracing the front page of the Standard regularly. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And how are you feeling tonight?
Cool.
You're feeling cool?
Yes.
All right. I saw that you're the chair of, let me find that. Is it the Devolution?
Association of Devolution Journalists.
The association, let me see. I've got it. Chairperson, Association of Devolution Journalists.
Yes.
How is that different from Kenya Correspondents Association?
This one is mainly those who cover county governments, both the executive and the assemblies.
Okay. Yeah. All right, and sitting next to her is the beautiful Jacqueline Mwenesi. She is a nominated member of the Vihiga County Assembly. Your smile is just so radiant.
Thank you.
And we appreciate that you made the time to be here with us. And next to her is Anderson Ojwang. He's a media consultant as well as a publisher. And you told me it's called, is it a paper?
Yeah, the Western Insight.
That comes out fortnightly.
Yeah.
But prior to that, you were, or rather at some point, you
Bureau
told
chief.
me, well, yeah, once in your career, at some point in your career, you were the Bureau Chief, Kisumu County.
Yes.
So we're happy to have you here as well. Now, let me introduce you to another guest we have in the newsroom, Kennedy Mureithi, who is a senior political affairs reporter here with NTV, and Obala tells me he's her senior. Is it lonely down there, Mureithi?
No, actually it's not. I know down here is actually even better because people get to watch me in the newsroom. Kenyans also have to watch me everywhere else, you know. I'm having all my time. And as Rosalina said, we are together at the Kenya Political Journalists Association.
All right. And I don't know whether our viewers know this, but Kennedy Mureithi was the communication director for Tharaka Nithi County at a certain point in time. Am I correct, Kennedy?
Yes, I was that and also the political advisor to the governor.
All right. So you can speak both from the perspective of a journalist and somebody who worked with the county government. And close to 500 kilometers from here in Mombasa is Charles Mgenyi in our Mombasa studio. Charles corresponds for the Star newspaper. And Charles, please do tell Karim, thank you very much for hosting you in our studio.
Okay. Thank you so much, Baro.
All right. Now, there was a gentleman called Jared Otieno who was on the Vox Pop, and he accused the Mombasa press of downplaying the floods in Mombasa.
Actually, Baro, the floods in Mombasa have been covered. It has been everywhere in the news, yeah? And I think journalists have done the best. We've done something. It is there everywhere. It can be seen.
All right, so you haven't downplayed it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And it's Olive Barrows, Charles baptizing me there, Barrow. And on phone tonight, we have Terry Nzao of Mbai2 FM. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. Can you hear me?
Hear you, Olive.
We are happy to have you. And also on phone is Joyce Kimani, who currently occupies the office of Secretary General of the Kenya Correspondents Association. More power to you, Joyce.
Hello, hi, how are you?
We are happy to have you as well. I had occasion to read through Joyce's credentials, and she's worked as a correspondent for the Daily Nation, Taifa Leo, Business Daily, and The Star. Joyce, how is it that you came to hold the office of SG?
I vied for the position.
Okay, so you were validly elected?
Yeah, I was validly elected in an election.
All right, and she has the backing of all those who elected her into office to speak on their behalf this evening. So I'll start with you, Terry. The question we asked tonight is, are you satisfied with media coverage of issues in the counties? Do you think there's room to improve, Terry?
Indeed, there is room to improve. And Olive, if we compare the coverage of our counties 2019 compared to when we started or when the counties came into place, there's totally much improvement. Journalists now understand better how counties work compared to those other years. And I can say, at least for now, the media officials are trying, but a lot needs to be done.
Okay. Joyce, I'll put this question to you. This was Njoroge Muraya, and he said, I feel betrayed by the media. All this looting and misuse of public funds is happening under their watch. He says they are compromised, especially the local county correspondents, given tenders and hush monies, and they investigate to extort, not to expose. Is there any truth to that statement?
I believe we should not judge people as the blanket condemnation should not stand. If you have a problem with a journalist, it's about individual journalists. But I've worked in the media for 10 years as a correspondent, and there's not any time where I've been compromised or I've been told to do a certain story in a certain way. So I believe it's just a misconception that people have, and people think that media goes out to get tenders in the counties. But actually know, like they have not been able to pinpoint a case and say this journalist received this tender, that's why he's doing the stories in this particular way. I don't believe journalists have been compromised. I believe it's just a thinking that people want to drive home, which I don't buy.
Okay. It appears there's a gentleman here called Director Kim Fury who says, I think the media is doing a great job. This is because they have highlighted some great stories, from bad hospital conditions to dilapidated classes in Kilifi. The stories they have highlighted have awoken counties and the country in general. I salute them a lot. But Joyce, there is the issue of that was raised actually last week by the official, what do I call him? He's the Secretary General, Eric Odor, yeah, of the Kenya Union of Journalists. And he said that you have, for example, a journalist in Mombasa being told to go and cover a story in Lamu, and then there's no facilitation. Then the counties are forced to step in and make that facilitation. What do you say of that?
I don't believe that is being compromised. I still believe that as a journalist, if I am going to cover your story, you have to give me transport. Because there's the issue of journalists being poorly paid. It beats logic for you to expect me to land somewhere and to cover a story, yet I don't have means to go to the place. So we still have that challenge, especially because most media houses do not facilitate their journalists. But does this mean that they're being compromised? It would be the same as arguing that when somebody goes to, when a businessman fuels the car to go somewhere, he's also being compromised. So I think it's important to facilitate journalists, but that doesn't come in as a bribe, or that doesn't come in as something that will manipulate their thoughts on how they're going to do a story. I believe most of the journalists I've dealt with are independent. Let me speak on behalf of the correspondents. Most of them are independent, and they wouldn't fine-tune a story just because you give them a lift or you give them some cash to go and do a story. I believe we deal with professional journalists who know what they're doing, and they wouldn't go somewhere and decide that this story was being written this way just because somebody gave them a lift or somebody facilitated them to somewhere.
Okay, Joyce, let me put it to you this way. This is the way it was put to me by the managing editor of Capital Group, Michael Mumo, and he said, so let's say the county government facilitates a trip. You've never been on a plane. They pay for your plane ticket. You go to the county. Do you expect this person to then cover anything negative that comes out of their visit?
I don't believe in such price tags, because then that would be stooping too low of a journalist, and maybe the misconception that some journalists cannot be able to access things like good hotels or good plane tickets or something. Because if you are dealing with professional journalists, some of these things, not every journalist has a price tag. That is my message. So I still think that it's still a misconception that they believe that if you fly people in, if you give them good money, if you give them somewhere nice to stay, you're going to interfere with the way they are writing. We deal with very independent journalists. It's like basically you are saying a journalist doesn't have a brain of its own, of his or her own, once he's given money or once he's given a plane ticket, which I don't buy.
Okay, I'd like to have Kennedy Muriithi come in at this point. Kennedy, this facilitation fee, does it not color how stories are covered?
Well, Olive, you're calling it something different. When you're calling it a facilitation fee, then you somehow dirty it. What happens is, Kimani has said, is that there is that thinking that probably if you want me to cover a certain story, then give me transportation. We have seen media houses here in Nairobi where they're headquartered, that in certain regions they do not have as many reporters as they do have in Nairobi. Like, I want to speak about the place where I was in Tharaka Nithi County. In Tharaka Nithi County, the whole of Nation Media Group has one person to cover the entire county. Now, how do you expect this person to move from one place to the other, yet he's a correspondent, and the amount of money that you're giving this person for a specific story is not even enough for him to eat at home? I want us to be very categorical and to be very truthful about this matter. And it's not just here, but it is something that is happening everywhere. This journalist will tell you, okay, you want us to go to a certain place. Have you assured me of my security? number one. And if me traveling with the governors means, or in the governor's entourage is going to assure me of security, then why not? Because we've even seen some places like, I want to speak about Kamaende in Tharaka Nithi County that was in the news last week. See, we had to send a team from Nairobi for them to go cover that particular area because we did not want to get our journalists on the ground into some certain danger. If anything were to happen, then they would have gone back for this particular journalist. So are these people given for the facilitation fee? I do not want to agree to that so much, because at the end of the day, this person has a duty to the media house that has given him that opportunity to go and work in that specific county. Is this creating friction with the governors? Yes, it is creating a serious friction with the governors, because there is nobody who wants a negative story told about them. So are they trying to induce journalists? Then this is the other question. Yes, but then it all depends with the morals that a journalist has. Because you can go somewhere, you can be given something by that specific news source and still write an objective story as you have been sent to write by the specific media house that has sent you. Remember, Olive, and the panel that we have, these days we have something that is called citizen journalism. And citizen journalism has been on the rise for so long. If a journalist will receive something so as not to tell a story, then that story will be told by a common Kenyan. And it will be trouble for the journalist who was sent for that specific story. Because anybody who has a phone these days is almost a journalist. Most people watch news these days just to confirm whether what they saw is true.
Okay, Kennedy. I'd like the Machakos press secretary to come in at that point. You've made it possible for a journalist to cover a certain story. If they go ahead and give you negative publicity, would you feel slighted?
No, what we really agree, and I would really want to be very categorical, that like in Machakos, we have a very good relationship with our reporters. We give them a leeway to file their stories. And from the onset, I would really want to say that they should be grateful because they have a governor who really understands the dynamics of communication. My good governor, Dr. Alfred Mutua, I mean, he's an able communicator, so he has to let journalists work. We focus mainly not on politics, but on our development agenda, which is really aptly covered. So we have no problem. We let them be. They also let us be.
All right. Rosalind, is it the media houses that have dropped the ball? But first, if you could just take us through the various cadres of staff in the counties as far as media is concerned. You were telling me earlier, stringers, correspondents, even staff, people on permanent employment.
Yeah, we even have those on contract. So we have so many of those journalists. There are those who are based in the bureaus who are actually facilitated. They get vehicles to their assignments, they get airtime, they are given lunch from the bureaus. But there are those who are actually stationed in specific areas where they call in the morning and they brief the bureau chief on what they are doing for that day. And sometimes you find that even a journalist is in a particular area, then an event happens, and then they're directed, maybe where they're going is even 100 kilometers away from their station. But because you have been assigned, nobody waits to know how are you going to go there. At the end of the day, in the evening, you'll be asked where is the story. So again, we also put the journalist in a very delicate situation whereby they have to rely on the source to assist them. So I think also the media houses are contributing to this. Yeah.
All right. Anderson, you're a bureau chief. Did you make the same demands of the people who are working under you?
Thank you. Let me take you back. The first question I want to ask you, in Kenya, do we have correspondence? That's the question you want to ask. The answer is no. In 2016, ILO did pass a regulation saying that journalists and correspondents should be considered as members of the union. The 2010 Constitution gave a leeway that any worker is allowed to join a union. So this created a crisis in the media house. So what became of it? The media house, in their good way, they said, let's change the engagement terms. So people we have on the ground, they're no longer called correspondents. They're called either contractors or consultants. But at the if you read the newspaper, they have what we call the byline. So if you have a contractor, it's no longer a journalist. It's no longer anyway. It's somebody who's supposed to give you service at a fee. So where do we have? So we have contractors. We no longer have correspondent. So there's a crisis. So if a contractor gets a lift from a county government and the clients want service, we're in a crisis.
Jacqueline, you're laughing.
Yeah.
What's amusing?
No, I'm just enjoying the discourse of contract and correspondence. You know, that's not my area. So I'm really having it.
You're learning something new.
Yeah, I'm learning quite a lot.
Okay, Terry, let me come to you. How different is what you cover at Mbaitu FM than what the national media houses carry?
Mostly, Olive, the national media coverage compared to mostly what the vernacular radio stations or the local media houses cover, the verdict is mostly out. You'll find the mainstream media has yet provided coverage with a lot of zeal and enthusiasm. It covers on matters of national importance compared to other issues that are being covered out there. As we know, the media is the watchdog and the voice of the citizen, and it should highlight all issues of national importance on the devolved units with the same zeal. But mostly this is not what we see with the mainstream media. For example, if we give an example of recent mainstream media, it has dwelt mostly on cases of misappropriation of funds by the county government, issues to do with corruption cases, but after they have been picked by the Director of Public Prosecution. And this, you can find that there are other stories, successful stories in the counties. For example, Makueni has a lot of successful stories, Vihiga and other counties. The indicators of poorly performing counties like Busia, Wajir, do we see this covered in the media? There are other issues of corruption in the counties, but mostly for most correspondents, some of these things on the lives in these media houses.
All right, Terry. Thank you, Terry. There seems to be something happening with the network. Jacqueline, when you hear about contractors being given lifts, to you, does that compromise them?
It does a lot compromise, because when you tell me that a governor has to carry a correspondence or contractor, in this case, I don't know which is which, and then you are supposed to be objective in your coverage, it will compromise your story. It will compromise how you are. However much the story will be light, you will tend to sugarcoat it. Because this is the same guy who is giving you the peanuts. This is the same guy who is giving you the lift. So to me, basically, if you have to, these correspondents have to be given those goodies for them to work, basically they are doing nothing. Because they are supposed to be well remunerated so that they can be objective in their disseminating information.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I want us to take a break, but I want us to look at some of your thoughts on Twitter. Collins or Yombe says, compromise, compromise, compromise. I have worked as a correspondent before in Kakamega, and I assure you most of them are given money to cover favorably. It's elicited a lot of emotion, this story. We have Francis Gatimu who says, we all know you work for political class and not for Kenyans. And then we also have another view up here. Frederick Kavo says, I will give 60 for yes and 40 for no. Media has informed us very much, updated, and I have seen media impact positively lives of many Kenyans. 40 for fake news and cases of compromise and bias, that is, journalists should be activists. So when we come back, I want us to look at the type of coverage. I asked her about the difference between the type of coverage that is done by media houses that are based in the counties and the type of coverage that comes out of the national media. Coming up right after this break.
Wacha tuseme mimi ni boxer na mimi ni mama. Nimejifundisha boxing wakati ambapo nilikuwa Mathare North. Naangalia sana internet. Sasa hiyo kila mtu alikuwa anasema ya kwamba wewe umeisha, vitu kama hizo, haufai kucheza boxing, unafaa kuacha boxing. So hiyo ndio kitu yenye ambapo ilinipatia pia mtisha wa kuweza kila saa nataka kujua ni nini Kenya ambapo inafaa ifanyike kwa boxing. Hiyo talent niko nayo ndani ya roho yangu. Nilijivunia ya kwamba kumbe naweza fanya. Kumbe naweza kuwa the winner.
For 18 years, we've been part of your story. Through good times and hard times. Never giving up and never giving in. Tuko nawe kila wakati.
Welcome back. You're watching Presspass. Very heated conversation taking place here in studio between the MCA in the house and the press secretary, and Roslyn Obala is the referee. In case you missed the first part of this program, we had Anderson Ojwang telling us that Kenya has no correspondents. The people we have on the ground are contractors who get paid for stories. I want to say goodbye to Terry, but Joyce, before I let you go, could you give us a sense of how much these contractors make a month, on average? Joyce?
Hello?
Yes, I want to get a sense of, on average, how much do these contractors make a month?
Contractors in terms of...
Because Anderson tells us we have no correspondents. The people who we have on the ground are contractors. Okay, how much do correspondents make on average a month?
Correspondents are paid horribly, very horribly. I know most of them, they're paid on the basis of what number of stories you do. So most media house pays about 250 to 300 per story. So on average, you can find on a good month, a journalist can make between 2,000 and 3,000 per month, which is quite low to survive in the counties. But then again, there's special consideration for people who do feature stories. So features pay a little bit more. And with the coming of devolution, you've seen journalists being able to write bigger and better stories. But I wouldn't say correspondents are well paid. They are one of the most poorly paid people in the Kenyan economic system.
All right, thank you very much, Joyce. I want to hear from Charles, who's the star correspondent in Mombasa. But before we get there, Terry, is that an accurate figure that correspondents in the counties actually make that little?
Olive, it's the bitter truth. Most of the correspondents contribute about 80% of the media content on daily basis. So we can say they are exploited. How they are supposed to operate from their counties is something for another day. Mostly you check most of the correspondents do not have a permanent job. They do not have a contract. They do not have NHIS, NSSF. In case today I fall ill, it's at my own peril. Media houses are more interested on the stories that I send and not my welfare. And that's where I come to say that media houses should meticulously train their correspondents on all matters on how to cover counties, so as to have informed group of correspondents reporting from these counties. Without this, we'll have no capacity. So we need media houses to take through their correspondent activities, like initiating their way of life, like improving their social and economic status. Because today you won't send me to somewhere like Kitui and you've not facilitated me. Let's say I'm in Machakos town. You want a story covered in Makueni. How am I going to reach Makueni? Probably I'll be sponsored by county government of Makueni. Then what? My story will be compromised in one way or another. So I say, as journalists or as correspondents, we should not be subject to capture. We are required to report accurately, fairly, in truth, and also conduct in-depth research. But for real, correspondents are poorly paid, and we are exploited a lot.
All right, thank you, Terry. When we had Charles Mgenyi on phone, he's the star correspondent in Mombasa. We're trying to get him back. But before I can ask him this question, Rosalie, let me ask you this question. How is a correspondent? We have Joyce telling us that they make as little as 2,000 to 3,000 per month. How do you expect these correspondents to make ends meet?
That is true, because this is something that has been happening for quite some time. It's not that today we are starting to discuss the issue of welfare of correspondents or stringers or some of those on contract, because you find this is somebody who an editor will just call the person and say, from today start filing for us stories, or if it's somebody who is doing TV or radio, just start doing. So actually what is linking you with this media house is either your byline, or when you voice stories or on radio. That's the only. So if one day they wake up and they tell you you're done with your work, that is how it is. So you find at the end of the day, even when you're doing those stories, you're not guaranteed that if it is a newspaper story, it will be covered, it will be used. And those who are, maybe the few who are lucky are on retainer, but not everybody is on retainer. So you find you lack insurance, you never have leave days, so you don't go on leave. So if maybe 1 month you're sick and you're not working, that means that that whole month you'll not get anything from the media house. So now you find, because of that, those who are in the counties decide now to rely on the county assembly or the county executive to survive. So now if I have a story that I'm not guaranteed it will be covered, and the county government, there's somebody who is able to pay me money and just keep this story and look the other way, I'll do that, because at the end of the day I need to pay rent. If I'm having kids I need to take to school, I need to survive. So I think this is a conversation that media owners must actually put themselves to discuss, because if 80% of the content come from correspondents, and these are the people who are suffering most, and with the coming in of devolution, there's so much intrigues that are happening. There's also the issue of advertisement that media wants, because almost 90% of our media are privately owned. So because of this, we need to know who are the kind of people that we have in the counties. Do they have the capacity? Do they understand the functions? Because some do not even know the functions assigned at the counties, which ones are county functions under Schedule 4, and which ones are the national government function. That's why you find some of the stories coming in, people question, does the reporter really understand what they're covering?
Okay. Charles, we have Charles back on the line. Charles Mgenyi, correspondent for The Star in Mombasa. Charles, are those figures accurate, between 2,000 and 3,000 on a bad month?
Pardon?
I don't know if you caught actually that part of the conversation. You might have been down on your end. But we have the Secretary General of the Kenya Correspondents Association, Joyce Kimani, who told us that correspondents can make as little as 2,000 to 3,000 shillings on a bad month. Are those figures accurate? Has that been your experience?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, there's truth in that. Yeah, you see that correspondents on the grassroots, they depend on what they write, on what's their contribution to their media house. So you find out if you don't write anything, actually at the end of the month you won't get anything, because most of them, they don't have retainers. If there's a retainer, it's just on the minimal side. So there's truth in it. Correspondents on the grassroots are getting peanuts, are not well paid by the those who are in the main media station. There's truth in that.
So how do they survive, Charles?
Okay, on survival, you have to write. You have to write more. You have to maybe. Some even start engaging in their side hustles. Yeah, that's what people do.
All right, Kennedy. Could that contribute to the quality of journalism that comes out of the counties?
Well, it contributes a whole lot, Olive, because this issue is not new, and this issue has even been compounded so much by the entry of counties and the county governments. Remember, as Kimani has said, which is very truthful, is these people make so little, yet they do so much work. I've been to a county like Marsabit. Remember, there is a member of county assembly, even the one in studio will confirm, who goes for as far as 570 kilometers just to go to the assembly. Well, this member of county assembly has a car, and he can access all these loans and all that. But there is a journalist who is expected to move from the county assembly and go all the way to 576 kilometers just to cover a story. Is this journalist facilitated? No. And then at the end of the day, the amount of money that he's going to be given per story is now what is becoming a problem. Some of these big media houses like Nation Media Group are even trying to pay their journalists well and their correspondents well, because but it's not that well. I know some of them have also been talking about it, but they are trying to enumerate them to a certain extent, so that even the quality of pictures and also the quality of stories that are being done. But yes, it compromises the quality of stories, because you do not expect, and I want us to be very truthful, Olive, it's time that Kenyans also got wind of this. There is no way that you're going to be given a lift by the governor and you do a bad story about them. This has happened also when one of our journalists had been given a lift by President Uhuru Kenyatta to go to a foreign land, and they ended up doing a different story from what was done by the others. And the next time this journalist was kicked off that trip by the presidential aides. So this is not something that is just happening at the county level. It is also happening here in Nairobi and also at the presidential level. Nobody wants a bad story about them. Look at just the stories that we do also as a media house. Some of the rotten stories that are coming from counties, and I want us to be very truthful, the journalists at the counties are doing the work that they're supposed to do. But it gets to a point whereby even if the heart wants to send a bad story, the county governor will call the bosses in Nairobi and say that if I watch that story on air, I will not give you business. Then it comes in the angle of business and how we are supposed to handle such stories. Even here in Nairobi, it has happened. There are times where the Jubilee government had been hit so much by media houses, and it got to a point whereby they decided who they will be giving business and who they will not be giving business. So the media, to some extent, has been held by these people who have what it takes to lead this country and who have a say with regards to money. I didn't want to say that word.
Okay, Kennedy. Charles, I'll come back to you. Given all these challenges that correspondents face in the counties, has the Kenya Correspondents Association and the Kenya Union of Journalists represented your interests well?
Yep, come again.
Are you satisfied with the representation of the Kenya Union of Journalists and the Kenya Correspondents Association, given all these challenges that we are saying correspondents face in the counties? Or contractors, as Anderson
Actually, we find that we have the Kenya Union of Journalists and the Kenya Correspondents Association, but not everyone is a member in these associations or in this union. Yeah, word out there is that these people represent their own interests. Joining Kenya Union of Journalists, Kenya Correspondents Association, they do not represent what the correspondents on the grassroots what they undergo, what they feel about their issues. They do not represent the issues of those who are on the grassroots. Kenya Union of Journalists has tried to come back to the coast, has tried to recruit more people, and we think, we have some beliefs that it's going to help us. And maybe in a near future, maybe we're going to have, journalists are going to be well represented at the grassroots.
Okay, Charles, before I let you go, what specifically would you like to see happen?
Yeah. Pardon?
What specifically would you like to see happen with regard to the welfare of correspondents? Yes. Especially those attached to media organizations such as yourself.
Remuneration, yeah. Journalists should be correspondents should be well paid, because you find that we are being paid how people in 90s were being paid, and we are in a new. Everything has changed. Yeah, the cost of living has changed. I find that most of the correspondents do not have medical cover. Most correspondents do not have even what the other staff at Nairobi are enjoying at the grassroots. These people do not enjoy. So they should be well paid for their output. They should have medical covers and enjoy all other benefits. That's what we should be advocating for.
Okay, given these tough conditions that you're working under, what keeps you in the job? What are you looking forward to?
Okay, one may I may say it's passion, yeah, because people have passion for people. Journalism is a calling. People join journalism because of a calling. It's hard life, but you find that every day you want to keep on writing, you want to keep on telling the public what's going on. So what keeps us in this job, I think, is the passion we have for this job.
All right, thank you very much, Charles. Unfortunately, we do have to let him go. I don't know, do we still have Joyce on the line? Joyce, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still with you.
You had Charles say he doesn't think the Kenya Correspondent, he said the Kenya Correspondents Association officials look out for themselves. Was that a fair comment?
That was not a fair comment. What most people don't understand is, if you're not my member, I wouldn't vote for you. So we encourage a lot of people to join us as members so that we can be able to fight for your rights. Basically, I can pinpoint some of the things KCA has done for correspondence. One of the things we've been able to do is we've been able to negotiate with media houses. I know most journalists don't know that, and most correspondents are not aware of that. But KCA was among the people who are negotiating for major media houses to give correspondence contracts. And some of them got them, especially from the Nation Media Group and Standard. We were the ones who were able to sit and say, no, correspondents also need retainers, which is not so much, but at least it can make you survive the month. It can pay your house rent and your bills. And these are ongoing engagements we try to get every day. For example, we are still engaging with most of the major media houses in seeking for more retainers and for the amount to be increased. We've also negotiated for insurance for some of the journalists, especially the main media houses. And one of the key things we do as KCA also is more on training. We train journalists. For example, we had a three-year project that we were training journalists on how to report stories on devolution. And we even had the ROG Awards where journalists were able to submit the stories on devolution. And I think one of the key aspects where we came in as KCA was during the elections, the electioneering period, where we were able to negotiate with media houses so that journalists who are going to cover the elections are given a small stipend. And we talked to various media houses where they're even given laptops and memory cards and food and basically transport to the venue. So there's a lot that is going on the back end. But my problem with journalists and especially correspondents is they want benefits, but they don't want to be members. And this has happened, especially every time we see a journalist under threat, they call me, for example, and they tell me, hi, I'm under threat. Please help me. But when you engage with the journalist and you find out why you're not our member, they would give us some weird reasons. So I find it unrealistic for someone to want to benefit from being a member of the KCA, yet you don't want to be from the benefits that KCA members get, yet you don't want to be a part of the membership. It's like a club. You want to be in the club, you go play golf, but you don't want to be inside. So,
all right, thank you. Thank you, Joyce, for that. Anderson, do you agree with Charles that the Kenya Correspondents Association and the Kenya Union of Journalist Officials are in it for themselves?
I 100% agree with Charles on the first one, Kenya Correspondent Association. It is a group of people organized for a joint purpose, while union is a legal entity that is able to negotiate on behalf of the journalist. What am I saying? Today I was able to go through the website of Kenya Correspondent Association. I didn't see any single achievement. What about engagement, about payment or contracts to the correspondents? So what they're saying, yes, the association is supposed to help them. They have membership of around 300 people, but there's nothing to take home. They need to move on and say, how do we empower the journalist? But going back, the KUJ has made some tremendous achievement. They have been able to get what we call fixed contracts for some correspondents. That is between 1 year to 3 years. So if you ask Kenya Correspondent Association to table any achievement, there's nothing. So what we are saying, for the country to have proper content, we need to pay these people well. But again, Kenyans need to move from what we call problem journalism to what we call solution journalism. When we talk about solution journalism, we are trying to look at the problem, then say, what is the way forward? By having that, the journalism is moving from crisis to solution. That is where the problem is.
All right, I want to let Terry go, but before I let her go, she tells me she has a burning point that she just has to get across. Terry?
Okay. Yes, Olive. Still on the issue of facilitation and compromise. For me, I do not preach on compromise, but Olive, really, how are you supposed to work or to operate with 2,000 to 3,000 shillings a month? You have a family. You have bills to take care of. How are you going to snap these traps which are normally laid by county officials or some businessmen? Like someone said, you'll jungle between a story you're paid 500 shillings and someone who is giving you 50,000 shillings. Which one will you go with? On the issue of KCA, I can say it has tried, but still there is much room to do more. But it should not be a group of cartels like we've seen with other associations who are there to conclude in milking the journalists or the correspondents. To me, I can say KCA has achieved nothing. We need to see something tangible from Eric Oduor-led team with Kina Joyce, not just people yapping, saying we are fighting for correspondents' rights, but we can't see who are they speaking for. What are they doing apart from the trainings they do? We need to see something at least which can uplift and give us some morale even as we work with our media stations. And the last thing I want to say before I leave is we need more training as journalists and as correspondents. We need to be sensitized a lot on issues to do with county governance or with devolved units. And also this should come also to our editors. And I thank God Mutinda is there. Some of the counties are so much notorious in hiding information to these correspondents. You'll find them giving the editors the information and not giving the correspondents the information which is needed. So if you give my editor the information, where do you expect me to give out a story when it comes to county government? I will just tell you, you can give it to the editor as you normally do.
All right, thank you, Terry. We've just had Eric Oduor send us a message. He says, watch out, you mention KUJ, and there is no opportunity to reply. But Anderson and Charles did say KUJ mnajaribu, but Rosalia, let's see if we can also get him on phone. I'm talking about Eric Oduor. the Kenya Union of Journalists, the Secretary General. He says, tuache kuwataja, and we've not given them the opportunity to reply. Let's please try and get them on the line, Rosalia. But Charles and Anderson, mulisema wanajaribu.
Wanajaribu.
Okay. Message received, Eric. I want to move away from welfare to matters quality, the quality of the stories, the quality of the journalism that's coming out of the counties. Mwanzia,
Yes.
how big an issue is that? When you look through, especially where the stories that are coming out of, from the national media, do we cover anything apart from Waitito was before the Senate CPIC committee, and there was the State House expenditure as part of the Auditor General's report, and today Obado was before Senate. Do we just cover counties or governors when they come to Nairobi, or do we only cover county issues when you hear of a gruesome murder?
Yeah, thank you, Olive. From where I sit, I would really want to say that first and foremost, journalists at the county levels do a great job despite the hardships they undergo. And kindly, let's not sweep the real state of journalists at the county levels. The buck stops at the door of the media owners and the media houses. I mean, you don't expect a hungry monkey to guard bananas. Certainly to want to eat the bananas. So, as a media practitioner, as a press secretary, as a chairman of communication director caucus, I would really push, let's pay our journalists well, so that we can also expect them to cover well. Nationally, you'd really find that there's something that I abhor, that you find that journalists come from Nairobi, what we call parachute journalism, coming from Nairobi to cover issues in Machakos. I mean, we have competent journalists in Machakos who can just do the same job. So, county levels, journalists are doing a good job. Let them work. Let them give them adequate support, like we do in Machakos. That, my friends, we take tea. We take lunch. We take supper. Olive.
Okay.
But finally, and this is very important, and I'm happy Terry has raised, she's an editor. She knows what really happens. Joyce has been a correspondent. She knows what really happens. Let's not bury our heads in the sand. Let's motivate these correspondents.
All right. Jacqueline, do you agree with Mwanzia? Are the journalists in the counties doing a good job in your experience? Especially as far as covering the county assemblies is concerned. Because he's speaking from a county executive point of view.
Yeah. First and foremost, I'm still coming to terms with the fact that correspondents earn between 2,000 and 3,000 shillings per month. But that notwithstanding, the kind of information that comes from the county, unfortunately, is the negative information. The correspondents per se, or the journalism per se, have dwelt much on the negativity, unlike the positivity. For example, what is boomerang in the media is about corruption, is about theft, is about especially the MCAs. I don't know we are doing what, wastage of funds. But I'm now understanding from this discussion, because when they are given lifts by the executive or the governor, and as an MCA cannot afford to give him or her lift, then I understand why we are getting the negative publicity. But that notwithstanding, of course, we have journalists who are trying their level best to balance, despite all that drama that is happening. But basically, I want to put it categorically that we have positive things from the counties that we can talk about. I want to give a case study in Vihiga. A case study is when a nominated MCA brought a personal bill of disability. You know, that is a big story that could have carried the day. But you see, that is not happening. Instead, they want to go and look at the MCAs who are fighting, who is being impeached, which speaker is being whatever, you know, which MCA is told not to behave as a second wife, you know. That is what basically, and we have been termed as hooligans. That is not the perception. So I wanted to say that there is a lot of positivity from across the 47 county assemblies, if we can just be given that chance or that fair playing ground.
Okay, I'm just looking at a headline that was carried, a story basically that was carried by the Daily Nation on April the 16th, Tuesday, April the 16th, 2019. And the headline reads, "We want car grants, not loans. MCAs push for honorable perks."
Yeah.
So are you saying as journalists we are obsessed with those kinds of stories? But then in all fairness, Kennedy, the story is when man bites the dog, not when the dog bites man.
Definitely, Olive. The story is always when the man bites the dog and not when the dog bites the man. As the Honorable Member of the County Assembly has said, yes, it is important when a member of the County Assembly is bringing a bill such as the one about disability and all that. But what really do people want to watch? What really is eye-catching? What is it that you will stop and watch and say that, this is something very interesting and I really want to watch and read? And this is about members of the County Assembly not being so careful or not thinking about what is happening in the country and blatantly saying that we want higher packs. We want grants and not loans. Now, how does that not make news, Mheshimiwa? How does that not make news? And Kenyans want to know, what is it that has informed you to do this? Some of us are even being paid less and we are saving so that we can buy houses. Why can't Mheshimiwas do that?
All right, Kennedy brings us up to our break. I'm seeing a gentleman here called Galgalo Bocha. He's very passionate about this subject matter. He says, "I worked as a correspondent in Tana River and Lamu counties for 15 years. And you really need a miracle to make 20K per month. I was very lucky because I was not very loyal to my employers. Wow. I worked as a stringer for foreign news agencies to earn that extra coin." We go on a break. When we come back, we discuss that parachute journalism Mwanzia talked about. Welcome back. You're watching Presspass. Heated conversation, as you could, as it probably leaked to you at home. We're discussing press coverage in the counties, or rather how the media covers issues in the counties. Jacqueline, Mureithi, I hate to put you on the spot, but Mureithi says he will not go home until you answer his question. And his question was, why can't MCAs, where car grants are concerned, save like journalists who make, as we've heard, not so much money?
It's the same Mureithi that put across and said that we have MCAs who walk, or rather drive as far as 570 kilometers. And basically our simple analogy was this. The MPs probably are given 5 million grant. Now they have 250,000 house allowance. Basically the MCA, what people don't know, that by the time we were coming in 2017, Sarah Serem had slashed our salaries by half. And what we are basically asking is about mobility. We have MCAs who walk or rather drive as far as 600 kilometers. And we are saying with that meager salary, even that taking of a loan that they purport to cheat us, that you can take a loan of 5 million. If you take a loan of 5 million, by the time the 5-year end term you are ending, you cannot even service the whole loan. And we find that those savings that you put in lab trust and lab fund, they end up paying the loan. So in true terms, MCAs are actually, we have been reduced to beggars, to say the least. Okay. And that's why, even if they are not, we asked for this 2 million from the president since the time we came in, and it's not forthcoming. We've said it's okay. Let us survive the way we have been surviving with our voters. But it's not that we have that excess money the way they think. I can show you, I can flash my pay slips. We are actually also earning meager salary, to say the least. That is on a very honest opinion.
The journalists in the studio are going like, do it.
Yeah.
Okay, Mureithi, tafadhali shikilia na hiyo, you're taking me down a different path. All right, back to the quality of coverage of the types of stories that are coming out of counties. Something else that's worth taking note of, a lot of these radio stations and some TV stations that have come up in the counties with digital migration are owned by politicians. How does that shape the type of stories that come from the counties? Anderson, I'll start with you.
Thank you. First of all, the ownership determines the kind of story that is presented. If you bring a negative story, you'll be sacked. But again, let's ask ourselves, do we give opportunity to train and retrain and educate our writers? No. Most of them, we had, with the introduction of electronic media, we had what we call notebook journalism. Someone with a notebook just walked in, or someone with a tape recorder walked in and became a journalist with no any form of training. So in the process, we compromised on the content. So what is important now? We need to, first of all, retrain, and educate. For instance, if you have a journalist who dropped in class 7 or in form 4 and actually didn't pass in English or in any of the languages, how do you expect that person to present a complete content? Again, the Kenyan situation, the media now needs to move away from what we called problem journalism to what we call solution journalism. If the MCS want money, ask, go behind the story. Why do they want to be getting more money? Then you develop the content. From that, we are able to change the perception of the people. The Kenyan reader today love what is negative, but we need to change them.
All right. He's talking about the quality of the journalists, right, in the counties. Not just in the counties,
Across.
basically, yeah? Across. What about, there are these journalists, I wouldn't call them journalists, but they get into the profession for the access that will give them to the political class. Because now from there, watakula. Have you experienced those sorts of, have you had occasion to interact with that type of journalist in the county, Mwanzia?
Oh, thank you, Olive. Just like any other profession, recently you saw that we had some nurses who injected, purportedly nurses who injected kids and patients with the wrong medicine. In journalism, we also have what you call quacks. I mean, they're rife everywhere. I've met people practicing as journalists who were previously working in hotels. They were butchermen. Others were selling peanuts in streets in Kisumu. I met a friend of Ojwang, and he knows that. So it's a problem where we say journalism is a calling, but we also need to put in place mechanisms whereby we also have a threshold of the training, qualification, you see, a basic degree, a basic diploma or certificate in journalism. But when we let it be free for all, whereby if you failed to be a pastor, you call yourself a journalist. I've seen pastors who, after being defrocked, because they know the Bible well, they become journalists and even run their own TV stations. You know them, Ojwang. Your cousin was one of them. So I mean, what do you say? I mean, let's make it a noble. Let's make it a noble profession.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
And Olive, just 1 minute. Madam MCA.
Yeah.
I mean, stop sitting on a pedestal, because you guys are some of the fellas who use journalists to fuel wars with the county governments. You know, you threaten us with impeachments, you see? So you should also have to take the blame for the poor quality of journalism at counties.
Jacqueline, I'll give you the right of reply.
Please.
Yes.
Now, my good friend, when he says that we fuel, in fact, if you look at journalists across the county, 47 county, 90% they will lean on the executive. And if they have to air anything about MCAs, it is on the negative side. And for you to say that we have fueled, you know, impeachment does not come from just the air, it comes from somewhere. And in most cases, it is the executive who pays the journalism to maybe to malign us. And then I keep on wondering, these journalists, do they have a school or laws that they are taught about plagiarism, slander, or maligning other people's names? So I want to put it categorical. In fact, we are not friends to the media, you know, because the moment they see an MCA, they see a hooligan, they see a zombie, an idiot, or whatever. That has been the perception. But I want to tell you, Mwanzia, when you look at me, do you see an idiot, or rather that hooligan that you've been seeing? So I'm trying to say, basically, kindly change that perception. We are people who have brains and actually doing our oversight role, representation and legislation. And then I wanted to put this comment across. Sometimes why we get this shoddy journalism from the counties is because some of the journalists have become politicians. They are actually, there's a case study in Vihiga where a journalist has gone round saying that he wants to become a member of parliament of a certain sub-county that are not named. Most of them want to be MCAs. Now, how will they give me a positive coverage when he really wants that seat? And you know, it's becoming a serious issue because now there's a thin line between giving the truth as it is and then they want to also to get these seats. And lastly, before I forget, also the level of education. I'm sorry to mention this. I have, you know, before I became an MC, I'm a teacher by profession. I met some of the journalists, my students, and I was asking him, you are a journalist? Yes, Walimu, I am. And then I remember I taught this boy, he got a D-, and then this is 1 year down the line. Which school? You know, I cannot ask. But now I'm asking myself, the quality of the information that will come. So those are some of the things that, now that we have Mwanzias and like Rosalind who are experts, to look into it. But as MCAs, they have now made us, we have now resulted in airing our grievances in these forums, in funerals, because I'll not be given the platform. But now with my voters, I resonate very well with my voters. So I'll go to the funeral, what I would have told a journalist, and I'll tell them, look here, my voters, this is the problem I'm getting. I cannot even be given airtime. But that time that you are in the funeral and saying the truth, they really cover you. But again, of course, you understand. But now I'm beginning to understand if actually these guys are getting 2,000. It is something that we need to think as a country. Okay. It's actually wanting.
All right, Mwanzia, how necessary is it in the counties to have your own platform, so your own station where you can get your message across?
Well, thank you. Now, before we even go there, if you really want to have your stories well done, you really also have to have a plan. And I can tell you for free, in Machakos, I mean, we have a fully fledged governor's press service, which I had. Competent journalists. We channel our stories. We call journalists, we share with them, even if we are in the same functions with them. Because you have to understand that these journalists also have challenges. But I'm MCA. Journalists are not angels. You also have to learn and understand how to work with them. If you become bossy and live in that pedestal I was telling you, I mean, talking to them nicely does not mean that you have to bribe them. Talk to them. Tell them this is the angle of the story that I want it to be run. And I'm telling you, voila, that thing is going to be in the newspapers. It's going to be in the radios. But if you really go there, want to see it pretty, you don't really want to tell them the storyline that you really want it covered, I mean, your goose is cooked. So, Olive, what I'm saying is this in a nutshell. As communicators, as politicians, you also have to up your game. Get organized. Why do we have to get governors who are well covered? I mean, there are 47 governors. There are some who do not even hit the headline twice in a year. Others hit the headline Monday to Sunday. Why? Common sense.
All right. Obala, I want you to come in at that point. Mwanzia talks about having their own press service. So these stories will come straight from the counties to the editors in Nairobi who make the decisions of what will be cut and what will be carried.
Quite
Therefore, as a correspondent in the counties, even if I have my own story and the county government has already spoken to my boss, I'm caught in between. I don't even have the option of filing a negatively angled story.
Yeah, I think the conversation is quite interesting. And maybe just to start with what Mheshimiwa was saying, I think the relationship between media is love-hate relationship. So you don't expect that every day the media will pamper you. Every day they will wake up and when they have negative stories, then they will flash it out so that that relationship in the county remains the same. I will refer to the story you're talking about, the car grant. And I was in Kisumu when the legislative summit started on the first day. The top agenda for MCAs was car grant. So now if I'm a journalist and I'm in that event, for me, I think we are advocating for them because it was welfare upon welfare upon welfare. But now when the story came out, it turned negative. And just like what Muredi was saying, at the end of the day, we will not give you what you want. We will give Kenyans what we think Kenyans need to know. Now, on the issue of what you're saying about counties having their own media setup, it is happening. And actually, there are times where you are in the county covering a story, and the story has already been sent to Nairobi. And Mwanzia here should just come openly. Machakos is one of the notorious counties when it comes to connecting with head office. There are some stories that will come from the Machakos that you ask yourself, how did it get this space? So let us just be honest about that. Okay. There are other counties where that relationship is not there. You find that this is a governor who is a technocrat who came in. They don't know how to relate with the media. But you find that this governor who is either a politician or this is a governor who knew his way out with the media. What do you expect? Actually, even if you have a negative story, I'm telling you, it will be like seeing through a needle for that story to be covered. So let us just be open and candid. As much as the challenges in the counties, the county executive and some of the county assemblies, where even the speakers and some of the MCAs are connected, we are facing those challenges. And that's why journalists in the counties are being threatened. Some even disappear. They are being intimidated. Their safety is always on the line. And you find that even there are some who even befriend other journalists who set up others. Even journalists who come from Nairobi, you go to a very hostile terrain, you are like, what is really happening? But the journalists there will tell you, you are invading our ground, the way he was talking about parachute journalists. And sometimes you're just coming to beef up what they have. Just like when they were saying the issue of facilitation, moving to long areas, then you say, okay, let's set a team to go and beef up the team in the counties. The day you arrive, they will disappear. They will not want to see the journalists who are coming from Nairobi.
Okay, Mwanzia, I'll give you right to reply. But first I want to read a tweet here from Frederick Kavo, K-A-V-O-O. He says, I'm from Machakos County. Thanks for bringing Governor Mutua's press team to the panel. Actually, Mutua out there via media says, for example, that every house has a shower. And in reality, that is not what we have. Pure PR.
PR.
Do all the houses in Machakos have showers?
Let's
start there.
Okay, because...
I missed that one.
Yeah, I would really want to respond to Obala about being connected.
Yeah.
Running a government vis-a-vis communication is not a bridal shower party or a birthday party. I mean, you need to be savvy.
Yes.
And I can tell you, if I was connected to the CNN headquarters, I would be a very happy man. So, politics and communications go hand in hand. As for Kavu, I mean, he's welcome to Machakos. Very welcome.
Do all the houses have showers?
I've told you he's welcome to Machakos.
Obala, had you heard that story that all the houses in Machakos have showers?
I had not heard about the showers, but I had one in 2013 that now that Mutinda was there is here, let him just come clean on this one. You remember when the governor launched the police vehicles, and I think there were, I don't know how many. I think security is a national government function, and it just left us asking sincerely, was that the county government function? There is a second one when the president also launched a water project, which we were told it was just a truck that was connected once the water was launched, and that was it. So now that he's here, please, can you come please?
Yeah, are those haters? Are those just haters?
I mean, that's a problem I was saying about journalists who live in Nairobi, like Obala. You know, they're used to air-conditioned offices, but to ask the Machakos journalists, they know what Governor Mutua has been doing. Development, Obala just wants to focus on politics, but come, you're welcome to Machakos.
Is water not a development project? Because the people of Machakos, I'm sure, need water.
Yeah, what you're saying is true. Water is a devolved function. And we're doing really well. If you really want me to enumerate, come to our Machakos office, you see the number of boreholes we've sunk. I mean, our people are happy. You are Nairobian.
And then this is one county where journalists actually have issues. And I'm not trying to put Mutinda on the spot, but it is one of the counties where journalists have complained that they have difficulties covering the executive, whereby when they're covering negative stories, then the stories are referred directly to Nairobi.
What do you have to say to that?
Wabala, I know you really want to put me on the carpet, but
I don't want to pile on. But there was also a story of a road. Yes. I can't remember what road.
Yes. What I'm saying is most before I let my dear brother Anderson, you have to understand when you're really doing well, like Machakos. Let me tell you, all the haters from Nairobi will be on us. So.
I know.
Let me just ignore Rosemary.
I've something.
Yes, Jacqueline.
Now, there's also this issue that I have to mention. We've talked about the local stations. But now, the challenge that comes with the local stations is when you're going to give a story that is negative about the governor, they will not give you airtime. I've had several counties, including mine, where my deputy speaker and the leader of majority whip were not allowed to go and talk because apparently the journalism presumed what they were going to talk about was anti-governor by then. And when we simply, because these are our brothers that we talk with them, we ask them, why is it so? They say, but he's the one who is paying us. You see that? So as much as we are saying that we have to air our grievances through the local station, there's that perception. And also there's this perception of journalists who are bought to kill stories. It is in the normal anybody's knowledge that some of the senators are eyeing to be governors. Some of the MCAs are eyeing to be members of parliament. So they buy these journalists so that they kill a story. For example, if I want to be a governor and I'm a senator, so I'll buy that journalist to kill the story, which is also a challenge. And I'll have to tell my good friend Mwanzia that the crop of MCAs we have, I'm the Secretary General of MCAs, women chapter, which has over 800. So you're actually basically talking to 47 counties and over 800 MCAs. And I want to tell you from my members, in fact, I was looking at my MCAs, and these are the crop of MCAs that we have these days is down to earth. I don't think we are that bossy, or because if we were to be that bossy, then we could be, some of the things we could not push. Because as much as we are pushed to the corner, we know our roles, and we basically do them, like passing budgets. And it becomes, for example, the case of Governor Waititu, when he was disowning his budget of 500 million money for State House. You know, nobody went to the leader of majority or the leadership of the House to ask them, what is your side of the story? Because he disowned that budget. But you see, the MCA will tell you, I will tell you, Jackie, this is the budget that I passed. This is, so what is in the website is not, but you see, I'm not given that airtime. They just listen to Waititu, the story ends there. But you didn't go to the MCAs and ask them, is this the budget that you passed? Is this, because apparently we are noticing that what we pass and what is flashed out are two different things. I saw it in Kiambu and I was very shocked.
I think on that, when the audit reports come, they are tabled both in the county assembly and in the Senate. We have never seen any county assembly that flags out these issues. Even in the beginning, they were complaining about Senate encroaching in their role. But no single day have we seen any county assembly that has considered the Auditor General's report and forwarded the complex issues to the Senate. So now when they happen in the Senate, again they wait for us, and you're saying they're talking about a forum like this to air the issues. I didn't see any county assembly or the county Assembly's forum come out and speak about this and say, the 11 affected counties, this is a statement we have. This is what the counties passed. This was what was sent to the control of budget. This was what was approved. And what we are seeing is actually not our budgets. So when Mheshimiwa now tells us here that this is what happened, and I know, and the problem we're having in counties is that there is no relationship between the journalist and the MCAs. You find even I'm sure if you ask now the journalists, how many do even get that budget policy statement? How many do even go through the budget itself that comes to the counties and they look at it and even follow later? The executive implemented what was passed in the assemblies. You don't see that. She talked about the bill on disability. Now, when you just throw in a bill, there are no journalists in the county assembly, and then you expect them to cover that. She will have even said, the sponsor of that bill approached journalists, explained the bill to them. It was introduced in the House. It went until it became a law, and nobody actually captured it. I am sure if you ask, even the journalists in Vihiga did not know that bill was passed.
Okay. So perhaps Obala and Mwanzia will provide some consultation services. Unfortunately, we are time burdened. I want Anderson, I had a question for you, Anderson. When we have counties where we have politicians on opposite sides, each having their own platforms, their own stations, do the real issues get lost in perhaps mudslinging?
Thank you. When two bulls fight, the grass suffer. So in the process here, it's the journalists who suffer. Why? Any person, any politician who runs a media station has what we call agenda, what we call communication strategy. So what we have is agenda setting. So what is the agenda setting? I want you to ensure that at the end of the day, make my lies be the truth. Make the lies be the truth, that anyone who listens say that's the gospel truth. Why? Everyone believes the media is the true gospel singer. So in a situation that where the media stations are owned by politicians, 40% will be truth, while 60% will be lies. And people will buy lies than the truth. Having said that, I've seen the big disconnect between the executive and the assembly. Why? The executive has developed a series and a serious media communication strategy, while the assembly is sleeping. They are sleeping and continue to sleep. And again, the truth be said, some quality, let me say quality of the legislature in the assembly is in doubt. Somehow, some is in doubt. Is in doubt.
All right. Unfortunately, that will have to be the last word on the subject. I think it's a conversation that needs to be taken forward by Mark Masai once he's back next week. But Frederick Kavu tells me I'm from Machakos, Nguluni location and Kidwani sublocation. How would Mwanzia welcome you to Machakos? That's his question. I want us to look at what's been making news internationally briefly. Well, we did have that story. I don't know whether you guys saw that story. There was a British disc jockey who posted a picture of a couple holding a chimpanzee right after the Dutch and the Duke and the Duchess of Sussex introduced their son Archie to the world. Yes. What did you make of that, Obala, when you saw that? Was it racist, or do you think the guy just posted it in jest?
I think it was in jest. I think maybe because remember the whole thing has been shrouded in mystery, whereby even the birth itself, we didn't know where they had the child. Even the name took time before we knew the child is named Ashi. And I think because of that, they were just venting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, let's see the explanation the DJ had. This week, a BBC disc jockey found himself in hot soup after posting this photo of a couple holding hands with a chimp to mimic the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, when they introduced their son, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, quite the mouthful, to the world. The DJ, Danny Baker, later apologized for the tweet, admitting that it was ill-advised but denying that he was motivated by racism.
Ill-advised, all thought out stupid, but racist? No.
The takeaway is, if you really must post a picture of man and primate, then do like Ranger Matthew Shamavu of the Virunga National Park in the Democratic Republic of Congo and adopt, then raise an orphaned gorilla or two. Happy Mother's Day, Matthew. And while I salute your dedication to your job, let's just say, well, I think Kevin Hart said it best.
The gorilla about to grab me because it felt like somebody was doing this. And I was like, I got to do something. I got to get the gorilla off me.
And as Kenya adopted stricter guidelines on betting advertisements, Iran too was taking some action of its own to discourage gambling. It banned the country's version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and similar game shows, which their supreme leader warned endanger the culture of hard work and productivity that the country seeks to encourage. What do you think? Is that taking things too far? Well, according to producers, it's hardly the strangest thing that's run afoul of censors in the country. One TV writer narrated how he was advised to pay attention to the shape and size of women's ears under their headscarves, as it could be provocative. And a screenwriter and director recounted the time he was instructed to cut out a shot of buffalo walking out of the water. He was told buffaloes walking out of the water from behind is provocative. What do you think? Ridiculous? But after watching Moto strut his stuff, I'm not so sure. Presspass to an end. I would like to thank you for participating, all four of you. And Manzi, I know it's been a little bit heated on your end, but thank you for riding it through with us. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ubala. Thank you very much, Jacqueline, for coming all the way from Vihiga. Anderson, all the way from Kisumu. I really do need to get a copy of the Western Insight.
I'll get it tomorrow.
Yes, I would appreciate it. And thank you to Terry Nzao. Thank you to Joyce Kimani, who's the Secretary General of the Kenya Correspondents Association. We didn't manage to get Eric Odwor's side of things, but the KUJ, as Anderson and Terry, not Terry, it was Charles, said is not doing too badly. So please forgive us, Eric. And also I'd like to say thank you to Karim Rajan and Charles Genyi, correspondent for The Star in Mombasa, who took part in this discussion, and Kennedy Mureithi, my desk mate, would never forgive me if I left him out of that list. So thank you very much for keeping us company. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.